Here are the latest updates from the Tower of Babel. The Black Dragon Guild decided to tackle the 40th floor of the tower, confident and ready to showcase their top-tier skills. However, once again, they returned empty-handed. Of course, the hero of this situation was none other than the acclaimed rising star, the #1 hunter, Flame Emperor, who once again managed to defeat the boss solo. So, Mr. Flame Emperor, without any failure, you've set a new record once again. Since the tower appeared, you're still the only one to have killed a boss single-handedly. Do you have anything to say? Hey kid, before you talk to me, why don't you change that ridiculous title? I'm talking about the Flame Emperor. Why don't you use my real name instead of that embarrassing nickname? So shameful. And that washed-up guy over there, he's our protagonist. The only thing on his mind was, I envy him. He can just say whatever he wants. And not only that, everyone on the internet simply adores this guy. Everyone wants to be like him. In most conversations about hunters, his name always pops up. I really want to be like the Flame Emperor. I need to be like him. After all, it must be amazing to have the whole world interested in what you say. I even heard he's incredibly wealthy. Oh, how I envy him so much. If this world were a manga, someone like him would definitely be the main character, and I'd be just a sidekick. Yes, our protagonist is quite down, folks. He's not doing well mentally. We need to help him out, guys. Like this post so he'll be happy. Just don't mention the Flame Emperor, or he'll jump into your comments. Don't do that. Back to the story, the journalist asked if there were many aspiring hunters inspired by him, giving their best because of him. After all, waking up after 20 years, entering the tower, and defeating a boss that the Black Dragon Guild had been trying to defeat for over 10 years in less than a month is legendary stuff. Everyone wanted to know his key to success, or perhaps a phrase to achieve it. As the sages say, power amplifies who a person is. With arrogance, he said he would share because a few words might help the weak. It was up to him to grasp everything he would say. Then he declared, those who are meant to succeed will succeed. However, don't get in my way if you succeed. Or who knows, I might end up killing you. Our arrogant colleague simply turned and walked away. People were ecstatic, shocked, wanting to know what he meant by that. But it seems that statement didn't sit well with our protagonist. After a while, pondering it, he started crying, saying, am I crazy? Is it really good to ignore people when you become so great? It seemed like the reporter was being ignored, but I felt like it was me. Oh, if only I had a decent skill like the Flame Emperor. Then I wouldn't have to live in this crappy studio or be underestimated as the worst F-class hunter with no skills. I want so much to become someone like the Flame Emperor. I'm so jealous. I also want to succeed with my own skills. Or rather, how amazing would it be if I had the Flame Emperor's skill? At that moment, we see a scene that fortunately only happens in manhwas. And what am I talking about, you ask? It's a scene our protagonist had seen thousands of times in videos. What he saw shining before him was a legendary skill card. But here's the part where I said it's good this doesn't happen in our world, because he gained this skill out of envy. Man, imagine if something like this happened in real life. Oh my god, it would be crazy. No one would have a decent skill. Everyone would want to be envious of everyone else. It would be madness. No one would be famous. They'd just have a face that was once famous. For our protagonist, this felt like a joke from fate, because the tower, agonized by his unpleasant envy, sent him a skill as a gift. The tower praised his achievements. With that, our protagonist was a bit confused and asked, wait, this is different from what I saw in the videos. Oh, why should I worry when I just received a skill card? This is the moment I've been waiting for since I got here. Besides, it's a golden card, meaning this skill is at least rank S. The system then began generating his skill card. Probably the tower system is very good, because the skill name was simply what the protagonist always wanted. I want to be like you. He was right about it being rank S, but the effect was very contradictory. After all, the tower wouldn't give such an overpowered skill without restrictions. First, it would only activate automatically after death. After dying to an enemy, he could copy a skill and make it his own. I ask you, my grasshoppers, what would he do with such a skill? He'd have to die to the enemy? What kind of skill is that? Okay, let's explain a bit about this world story. Or better yet, let's explain the story of the tower that gave the skill to our protagonist. The first thing you need to know is that it simply appeared in the world. Could be seen on the horizon from anywhere. Second, those who had nothing to lose were the first to step inside and see what was there. Of course, where there was a tower, there would be floors, and each floor was full of monsters from another world. That's where skills started appearing to a few visitors selected by the tower itself. Obviously, everyone who heard this news gathered at the tower and started hunting monsters. Now, back to reality, leaving that boring explanation, there was a journalist on TV talking about the 40th floor and the heroic deeds of our little friend, Flame Emperor. Upon hearing this, our protagonist started talking to the store manager, who was a nice guy, asking to take this news off the TV. And he asked why he wanted that. He asked if he didn't like the Flame Emperor. And our protagonist, who had already drunk too much, started to say, "No, it's not that I don't like him. It's just that there are people out there with such good lives. So why is mine such crap?" Acting like a typical drunk, he started rambling about life and said, "Listen here. Yesterday I received an S-rank skill, but what kind of crap skill kills you when you use it? I haven't even reported it to the Hunter Association yet, you know? Because I'm ashamed to tell anyone that my real URJ hey, vomit outside." And after being kicked out of the bar, our protagonist was very upset. He was even rubbing his face on the walls because of his hangover. But suddenly, he started hearing someone screaming, and as he looked at the wall he was leaning against, he ended up in an alley where the Flame Emperor and a white-haired girl were. The girl was begging the Flame Emperor to stay away from her. But our dear arrogant one didn't give up and started saying, "Wow, you're a great actress, aren't you? If someone saw us now, I'd easily say you're the victim here. Miss Saint, I poisoned your drink with basilisk stomach acid, the same poison you planned to use on me. Oh, really? If it weren't for my skill, things might have gone a bit wrong." And the girl started saying it was a misunderstanding, that she only wanted to do a tower raid with him as her teammate. But apparently, the Flame Emperor thought that wouldn't work out well. In the background, our protagonist, who was already drunk and hungover, saw this scene and felt as lost as an onion in a fruit salad, trying to understand what was going on. Things started to heat up when the Flame Emperor grabbed her by the neck, saying there was nothing left to discuss. From now on, he would be the one asking questions, and she just had to nod to answer them. Since he had a lie detection skill, it made no sense to lie to him. If she was nice and answered all the questions correctly, he would give her an antidote. The first question was the most obvious. He asked who had ordered her to kill him. She claimed it was the witch from the Black Dragon Guild. While thinking about how to respond, Prota started recalling the news he had seen that morning. Despite reaching first place, he was still the same. It was good to see someone truly courageous. At that moment, the saint felt it was her. And the news continued. This is the kind of hero humanity needs now. But the next scene was more villainous than heroic. And probably I wasn't the only one who thought that. In his thoughts, our protagonist began to question. A hero? This guy? He's more like a killer, a psychopath. I need to get out of here now. But our protagonist wasn't very good at hiding his presence. So the Flame Emperor started talking. "I thought I got rid of all the rats in the neighborhood, but it seems there's one left." Faced with all this, our protagonist started to think. That look is of a killer. Could it be that the saint wasn't his first murder? How many people has he killed so far? A dozen? 100? Or maybe even more? Strangely, our protagonist simply fell to the ground. Looking back, he noticed his shoe was there. But it wasn't just the shoe, but his foot. So the Flame Emperor started walking calmly toward our protagonist, as he trembled with fear. And of course, since he had no strength and was facing the number 1 hunter, the only thing he could do was beg for his life. But the Flame Emperor simply ignored his pleas and asked if he had seen everything. In tears, our protagonist said, I didn't hear anything, I swear." Leaning toward our protagonist, the Flame Emperor asked again, "What was it you didn't see? You think I'll believe that? Besides calling me the Flame Emperor, you were in the right place at the right time and didn't see anything? Wow, that's very convincing. If I were a bit stupid, I might have believed it. So, if you don't want to end up like the saint, answer me correctly." Prota started reflecting in his mind. The world was obsessed with someone like him. Then Prota mentioned the lie detection ability. If he used that skill on him, he would realize that Prota was nobody and nothing. Then the Flame Emperor said, "What are you talking about, man?" And with that look, our Prota realized he had killed the saint without any certainty, just because he thought she was a bit suspicious. Hearing this, the Flame Emperor pushed our Prota, saying, "How dare you say such harsh words? What do I look like? The saint tried to kill herself, and if I hadn't killed her now, I would have been poisoned tomorrow." Then Prota asked, "What do you mean by tomorrow?" With sarcastic smiles, he said he only had his contacts. Oh, and speaking of a liar, he was probably innocent, and with that, our Prota started thanking him for believing him. However, he had seen too much, so he should die. Oh, and I hadn't mentioned his name until now because it was now that he introduced himself to us, and his name was Yusuha. At that moment, Prota's life started flashing before his eyes. Or rather, a specific moment in his life where the director of the orphanage where he lived said that since his name was Kim Gongja, he should do well in Confucianism. Oh, and the reason for that is that our protagonist's name in Korean translated would be something like Confucius, and Confucius in Chinese philosophy practiced Confucianism. And like many people before dying, he started thinking to himself, I don't want to die. Why did I have to die like this? No, why did I have to live like this? Maybe I could have lived a bit better. Actually, I have the right to live a better life. If I just had one more chance, just one more, I would grab it with all all my strength. Suddenly, our protagonist opened his eyes and realized he was in his bed, in his shabby room. He quickly got up, totally confused. The strangest thing about the whole situation was that he should be dead. What the hell is happening here? When did I get home? Looking at his phone, he saw the same comments about people wanting to be the Flame Emperor. The same news he had seen before was playing on his computer. So why on earth was everyone saying the same thing they said yesterday? Or rather, today would be yesterday. Wait, didn't I just die? Reaching out, he commanded, skill card, open. Of course, the first skill he had was the worst of the century, one that required him to die to use it, but he didn't know the effect of the other skill yet. He had just stolen it from the Flame Emperor when he died, and it perfectly matched his ability. I want to become you. Every time he died, it would automatically activate. At the moment of his death, he would return 24 hours from the moment he died, with his memories and experiences preserved. And the skill is rank X, which means it could be extraordinary or exclusive, but I think it's more extraordinary than exclusive because now there are two people with the same skill. Now, everything made sense. This is the secret to becoming a legendary hunter, and that's why he killed the saint, since she probably really did kill him the next day. However, he even killed Proda, who was innocent. While thinking about this, the interview was at the same part where he said a motivational phrase or word for those inspired by him, where he said that in the end, those destined for success would achieve it, but even if they succeeded, they shouldn't cause trouble because they would die. These words left a bitter taste in Proda's mouth. Now let's see who will die this time. Suddenly, from outside, someone shouted that there was a fire. Looking out the window, Proda saw a large flame spreading through the city. Going outside, he saw several people with extinguishers and buckets. Oh, and just to remind you, none of these were normal civilians, because the place where he lived was different from the outside world. Actually, that city was made up solely of people who entered the tower to become hunters. So this place was more specifically the first floor of the tower. Running with the crowd, Proda looked at his phone and realized it was almost the same time he had gotten drunk and witnessed that scene before dying. So these flames were probably to cover up the case. All that fire attracted the attention of important people. For example, rank 2 of the Black Dragon, the Guild Master, Black Witch. There was also rank 5, the Guild Master of Healers and Pharmacists, the Master Alchemist. And even rank 10, the leader of the city's surveillance corporation, or Paladin or Paladina, I'm not sure. Many of these people stayed calm in this kind of situation. After all, this was a city where you couldn't just let anyone in. Since they were literally inside a tower with various monsters, extreme situations were common. At that moment, the Master Alchemist began asking where the saint was, as she wasn't the type to be late to help in emergencies. The Paladin said she had something to do that night, maybe a date, and since she had been hanging out with the Flame Emperor a lot lately, she was probably with him. Hearing this, the Master Alchemist commented, I don't know why, but I don't like that guy. Something about him scares me. Then our dear flame colleague arrived. Oh crap, who played with fire without my permission? Seeing this guy, Proda was extremely upset. The Paladin thanked him for arriving so quickly. As he handled flames well, she asked if he could help. But since this guy is a despicable jerk, he simply asked, hey, what do I get out of this? Hearing this, our protagonist got even more furious. This crazy psychopath dares to ask for a reward when he started the fire himself? But who cares about his personality? He's already a legendary hunter. I'm just telling the truth, it's not like people don't know what kind of person he is. That news saying, it's good to see someone truly courageous? Ha, nobody knows. Everyone thinks the Flame Emperor is just a slightly eccentric hero. However, I'm the only one who knows his true nature as a bloodthirsty killer. That's why I must kill him. It's not just to feed my ego or for revenge. It's for humanity, for the honor of hunters. After all, hunters are people who should hunt monsters. That's why, regardless of the method, I need to hunt this monster. Out of nowhere, Proda simply threw himself into the fire and started burning. People looked at him in terror while he thought, my god, it's so hot, but this is the only way to kill this monster. And so, our protagonist went back in time and he was in his bed just like the other time. And he was happy that the skill was working. Imagine if he had died for nothing. Since he was rank F, his skill had no penalty for use. Well, at the moment, we don't know exactly what the penalty for using the skill would be. But one thing I know is that Proda simply can't kill the Flame Emperor in his current state. After all, even if he had the luck to kill him, it would only make him go back 24 hours in time. Since he had the same ability, there was only one way for a weak hunter like him to kill the Flame Emperor. At that moment, Proda remembered an interview where the journalist asked the Flame Emperor when he had awakened. He replied it was on his 21st birthday, so 11 years had passed since then. Doing some basic math, Proda realized he would have to kill himself 4,050 times to go back in time. After dying that many times, he could return to the day before before the Flame Emperor woke up. And with that, he began his relentless deaths. Even though he had no penalty, his mental state was collapsing. But even so, he didn't stop. After many times, he finally reached the last one. Our protagonist was probably very diligent with the timing, as he always returned to his bed. So, I don't think there was much to do with a specific place. But putting aside these intrusive thoughts, he finally made it back to the time when the legend of the Flame Emperor had not yet begun. To set the record straight, he died 30 times more than the original plan, which was 4,050 times. Including the time it took to kill himself, he took some breaks here and there. He went back all this time to prove that the legend of that demon was not eternal. But now that he had been deceived enough, it was time to find his first hunt. The routine of our ex-colleague, the Flame Emperor, was very simple. At 11 a.m., he would get out of bed, complaining about his headache and that he shouldn't have drunk so much the night before. Proda even repeated the Flame Emperor's speech perfectly because he had repeated the same day 10 times to refine the perfect plan. He memorized that, without fail, every day at 9 a.m., he would wake up in the F-rank dormitory. At 3 p.m., he would hunt slimes on the second floor, where he lived, complaining about killing slimes all day. Looking at this, Proda commented that his 21-year-old version was just a common F-rank hunter, wishing for a golden card, just like he once was. He even started shouting, "Can't I win the lottery or something? I want to get at least one S-rank skill." Wow, I've seen this movie before, right? If the story continued normally, his wishes would come true in a week. However, this time, that kind of future wouldn't happen for a guy like him. Collecting the remains of the slimes he had killed, he started rubbing them on his body. So, at 5:31 p.m., Yasuha, also known as the Flame Emperor, decided he wasn't getting anywhere with the slimes. So, he went to a higher, more difficult area where beginner hunters would go. For the next 36 minutes, he would be alone, and this was the perfect moment. Our protagonist approached him, covered in blood, asking for help because he had been attacked by wolves and needed a potion. Without caring about Proda's state, he got furious, wondering what he had done. All the monsters in that place were gone, meaning he had no more monsters to hunt. Proda kept asking for the potion, but the Flame Emperor ignored him, saying that if he continued like this, he wouldn't complete his daily quota. However, being benevolent, he asked how much Proda would give him. At first, Proda didn't understand what he meant, and, pointing his sword at him, the Flame Emperor asked how much Proda would give for the potion. After all, his hunt had been ruined, and he still had to give the potion for free. Oh, poor thing, to a stranger he had just met. Did he not have any morals? He pulled out a healing potion, and the priest declared it was sold in the alchemy castle for 20 gold, so he would give 20 gold. But the situation wasn't a negotiation. After all, the priest was on the brink of death, and he still wanted to pay only 20 gold coins. Was his life worth so little? Proda even tried to offer 40 gold, but Yasuha didn't accept it. He wanted everything Proda had. However, our protagonist already knew he was that kind of person. The Flame Emperor threw Proda aside and realized he only had 60 gold at most. He even had the audacity to say that Proda was very poor. Still acting, Proda said those were all his savings. Hearing this, Yasuha declared, "Don't worry, I'll spend it very well. After all, that's how things work, isn't it?" And since he had the greedy coin, he asked for the potion. But the Flame Emperor declared, "I thought a bit about it, but if I let you go, you might come back for revenge later, and I need to live a worry-free life. Since you saw my face, why don't you just die?" At that moment, Proda simply crouched while thinking, "Worries? I'm the one who will live without worries." While in pain because Proda had hit his colleagues, he quickly pulled out his dagger and simply slit the Flame Emperor's throat. Of course, this was the first time he had killed someone, so he was completely suffocated, but he shouldn't have given up. So, he started saying that to avoid the 1 in a million chance of him waking up and threatening his life, he would make sure to finish him off properly. Proda did just as he said. Looking at Yasuha's corpse, he started commenting, "Killing me was expected, but something strange bothers me. Why did you tell me your name at that moment?" Finally, after 4,090 days, he realized, despite being a cold-blooded killer, he wanted to pretend to be a knight in a sacred duel. How dare he? Was he trying to act fair after killing those innocent people? As Proda shouted loudly, monsters began to surround him. In fact, they were the wolves that were normal on that floor. Turning around, Proda declared, "Here's your evening snack." The wolves began to eat his corpse. A little distance away, among the trees, there was a hill where our protagonist began to dig. Inside the hole was a backpack with 3 bottles of water. He simply took off his bloody shirt and put on a new hoodie. While ordering the tower to send him to the first floor, he began to reflect on his thoughts. Is it really over? As he exited the tower, he saw the bodies of the guards. He walked past them, trembling with fear, but in the end, nothing happened. This meant everything was truly over. And the best part was that no one knew what had happened. Absolutely no one. But he also wouldn't receive credit for it. However, the terrible legend of the Flame Emperor, Yusuha, no longer existed. After all the struggle, he felt he should celebrate. So, he returned to the bar he always frequented. The bartender noticed he was very happy. He was opening his hunter status window. He still had the same 2 abilities, but now only he had the ability to go back in time. However, if you analyze it, he didn't have any combat skills. But maybe it was a bit shameful for him to want more than that. He could already go back in time and simply steal others' abilities. Why would he need combat skills? After all, he could win the Merchants Guild lottery, or he could sell methods to clear the upper floors that no one knew about yet. In short, he didn't need to fight. At that moment, a very strange old man entered the bar, dressed in a suit, looking like someone from the Peaky Blinders, except for the red part of his sneakers, and with an indescribable tone, he declared, "Give me some milk and mix a little vodka and sugar with hot milk. It would be even better if there was no sugar or milk." I didn't understand anything about his order, and he really said that, if I'm not mistaken. Seeing that old man, everyone in the bar began to feel apprehensive, and Prota thought the old man was very strange. The number of people in the bar began to increase even more. Looking at the old man, Prota was struck by a memory. He thought, "I've seen this old man before. The number 1 ranked hunter, Sword Saint. What is he doing here?" The old man, also known as the Holy Sword, was once Marcus Callenberry. Over time, he disappeared, and many people eventually forgot about him. In fact, until the Emperor of Flames rose to fame, Marcus was the true number 1 of the tower. And now, that very number 1 was standing right in front of him, asking for milk with vodka. Naturally, seeing the old man before him, protagonist started thinking, "I bet this old man is drunk. He must have several rank S skills. After all, he's rank 1. They wouldn't be strange skills like mine, but rather useful ones for combat. But wait, does this skill of mine allow me to copy the abilities of any hunter if I die to them? Does that mean I could steal skills from the top 1? Now that dying doesn't seem so bad, this could be possible, right?" Of course, our protagonist needed to understand who this old man really was and what was going on behind the scenes. Meanwhile, there were only rumors online that Marcus came from a wealthy family and had desired everything to climb the tower. In short, the old man was shrouded in mystery, very different from the top 1 of the future, who was quite flashy. Then, out of nowhere, the old man shouted, "Shut up! Don't speak so loud," which startled our protagonist. The old man continued mumbling to himself, and protagonist thought, the old man's age is catching up with him, huh? As he looked at his phone, he found some useful information. It was something that shouldn't have happened in front of the Holy Sword. According to the author, it's a 100% true story because he witnessed it himself. So, if they didn't want to die, they should never do that in front of the Holy Sword. The story began a long time ago when some high-ranking guys attacked the Holy Sword in the 9th tower. They wanted to take the Holy Sword's hunting ground, and he simply replied that he had never heard of such a rule. He even mocked the old man's hearing, but the moment someone mentioned his grandchildren, his body was simply split in half. It might sound unbelievable, but the Holy Sword, the number 1 ranking, would indeed cut a man in half just for making fun of his grandchildren. So, if you don't want to die, never talk about the Holy Sword's grandchildren in front of him. And like a curious child, protagonist thought, I must test this. While protagonist was contemplating this, the old man was there, struggling with himself. He tossed some coins on the table and said he was leaving. After that, the people, who had been completely silent in the bar, suddenly began to murmur, "Phew, he finally left. Does that old man have Alzheimer's? Why was he grumbling so much alone?" Seizing the opportunity, our protagonist also said he was going to leave. And now, the hunt for the worst ranking against the best ranking would begin. He probably didn't go very far, right? After all, protagonist left immediately after the old man did. And sure enough, it was just as he thought, especially with the old man dressed like someone from Peaky Blinders. Protagonist began to question in his mind, what kind of ability does he have? The Emperor of Flames had the return rank X ability. So, the Holy Sword, who succeeded even before the Emperor of Flames, must have an exceptional ability too. This ability will be mine. I just need a little luck. Suddenly, the old man stopped and commented that this place should be suitable. Turning around, he declared, "Get out of there, kid. No one will know what happened here." Protagonist, feeling a bit apprehensive, simply apologized for his bad manners and mentioned that he just wanted to ask a favor. However, the old man started laughing, catching protagonist off guard. Then, the old man said, "A favor? Didn't you follow me so carelessly on purpose for me to notice? Why are you asking an old man like me for favors in such a frightened way?" Protagonist thought the old man was going crazy because he misunderstood the reason why he had let his location be noticed. After all, protagonist didn't have a weapon or anything. The old man kept muttering something about something he must do while holding a sword as if he were attacking. But why was he doing that if all Protagonist did was follow him? The old man then commented that Protagonist was a great actor, as expected of a first-class killer. Hearing that, Protagonist became even more confused and began to reflect, a killer? An F rank like me? Congratulations, King Gongya, you're going to die without even insulting his grandchildren. But Protagonist declared that he didn't understand what the old man was talking about. The old man retorted, how disgusting. Even now, you can't fool my eyes. Protagonist started to think that the old man's mind had already gone astray, and that the theory about him having Alzheimer's was probably true. He questioned how he could even resemble a first-class killer. In reality, he was quite proud of being an ordinary person, but the old man told him to shut up. He had several skills, and among them was an ability that showed how many times someone had committed murder. Hearing this, Protagonist started thinking, it's true. As he explained, murder is murder. Protagonist knew that the person he killed would become a monster. But how could he explain this to the old man in this timeline? He bet that the Holy Sword could see the number 1 in his head. After that, Protagonist began to say that he understood what the Holy Sword was talking about. And as much as it seemed he was making excuses, he should listen to him. He had committed those acts for a much greater cause. He swore with all his strength. Hearing this, the only thing the old man could say was, you disgust me. A demon like you, who killed countless people, now wants to reverse the subject? I didn't live a particularly honest life either, but at least I didn't commit mass murders like you. You keep lying without any shame. After all, the number of people you've killed so far is 4,091. That's where the reason why the old man was so upset came in. Protagonist had indeed killed one person, Yasoha, but he had killed himself 4,090 times to get to the past. So currently, in the old man's eyes, he was just a murderer of 4,091 people. And of course, this was no longer about copying or not some of his abilities. As long as the Holy Sword had this ability, it didn't matter when Protagonist found him. The Holy Sword would always try to kill him. And he really did it. Watching this, the old man declared, you managed to dodge my blade? Ha ha, as expected from a first-class murderer. The Protagonist cursed the old man in his mind, but karma struck instantly as he tripped over a stone. So, kids, don't curse your elders. Of course, after that, he wouldn't be able to repeat his luck. The first time was pure chance, and now the old man probably wouldn't even give him another opportunity. Suddenly, the old man began telling him to shut up, seemingly speaking to someone about questioning the demon that was our protagonist. Seeing the old man speak so coherently, it didn't seem like schizophrenia, more like telepathy. Could be that, as Plata had heard rumors about this ability, that meant he was talking about him to someone, which was really bad because it would make him a wanted man by the Hunters Association. He would be hunted by the great guilds and main bounty hunters until he was publicly executed on the first floor of the tower. He couldn't let that happen and knew he had to act now, before 24 hours had passed. So, Prota said, so, old man, how are your grandchildren? I heard you were from a good family in the north, and you know how things are with those families, right? The outside world is dangerous, and if they find out you're the ex-husband of the old lady, what do you think would happen? At that moment, everything flipped, or rather, Prota's head was spinning. Instead of lamenting his death, all he could think was, ah, how beautiful. I couldn't even see his last attack. How can I reach that level? I want to be like him. Am I so jealous? I also want to have that attack. With that, the protagonist's ability activated. Finally, he had the chance to lay hands on the main skills of the two top rank ones. He wondered, what's the golden card? No, I must choose only one, just like I did with the Emperor of Flames. But when he looked at the cards, there were only silver and bronze ones. He questioned, wait a minute, why isn't there a golden card? Are you telling me that, unlike the Emperor of Flames, the legend of the Holy Sword, Marcus Callenberry, evolved without any rank S ability? No, that's impossible. There must be some overpowered ability among these silver cards. In front of him were 3 bronze cards and 4 silver cards. Ignoring the bad cards, his chances were 1 in 4. Maybe that murder counting ability was among them too. But Prota didn't want that. He wanted something truly overpowered. At the very least, it had to be a combat ability. So, he went back 24 hours in time and quickly opened his hunter status. He was already wondering if he had acquired the main ability of the spy. Indeed, he had obtained a good technical ability, at least an A rank, but it didn't seem to be the murder counter. Once again, it was a passive ability that probably wouldn't be useful since he couldn't fight with it. Looking at the name of the ability, he couldn't determine what it did just by reading it. While he was pondering, a voice out of nowhere said, ah, what's this noise? Son, I already told you, if you want to train in the middle of the night, go outside. Let's respect each other's space more. Oh, and remember, you can't stay too far from me, right? Otherwise, you'll end up waking holding me up. Seeing all this, Proto commented, excuse me, but who are you? The red-haired guy just asked, hey, can you see me? Proto confirmed, and yes, he could also hear him as they were talking. The red-haired guy, who looked like a Martian artist, let's call him a ghost for now, since we don't have a name, began to say, what? How strange, this shouldn't be happening. And where the hell am I? Why is it so small here? And where is Marcus? Proto asked if he was talking about Marcus Callenbury, the Holy Sword. The ghost confirmed, although he said that title was an exaggeration for a beginner like him. Hearing that, Proto was shocked because for the ghost, the tower's rank 1 was just a beginner. To understand the situation better, Proto took a look at the effect of the skill he had acquired from the tower. Summarizing the effect, the ghost had come from another world and, after being unable to defeat the 100th floor, got so angry that he became a spirit. Seeing all this, Proto apologized to the ghost, who didn't understand anything. Proto said, yeah, I'm sorry, but I think I accidentally cloned you. With a very angry face, the ghost began to scream, give me back to the old man, and started complaining while crying. You said you copied me with his ability, right? So you can also cancel it, right? There's no way you can't undo this, right? Nowadays, everything is undoable. Why am I here? The protagonist, going along with the ghost's outburst, said he didn't know. He couldn't control this ability. Suddenly, the ghost started flipping out, complaining that Marcus was useless for letting his master be kidnapped by some brat. Tired of all the shouting, Proto asked if they could at least live in silence since they wouldn't be able to cooperate. But the ghost yelled that he couldn't because he was already dead and there was no way he could live in silence. With a serious tone, Proto declared, all right then, can you stay dead in silence, please? But it didn't change anything. The ghost screamed even louder. Proto began to understand a little why the old man was talking so much like that. He started to complain, not only do I have to hide from the Holy Sword, but I also got stuck with this annoying ability. Hearing that, the ghost declared, hide from the old man? Why would you do that? He may not seem like it, but he's actually a really cool guy. Of course, as long as you don't talk about his grandchildren. Proto already knew that, so Proto asked if the ghost remembered that the Holy Sword had the ability to count murders. The ghost confirmed and said it was called the Detective's Eye. It was just a useless ability that helps you identify who's a murderer and who isn't. Pointing to his head, Proto declared, the number I have is 4091. The ghost, with a look of disbelief, replied, what? Are you crazy? You're a total amateur, an amateur among amateurs. You don't even know how to use aura, so how could you have killed 4091 people? The priest explained that he didn't kill 4091 people. In fact, he had only killed one person, and the other 4090 were times he had killed himself, ultimately coming back 11 years in time to kill that guy. He explained everything we had already seen, how he stole the ability of the guy who killed him, then took the Emperor Flame's ability, and came back 24 hours in time with it. Basically, he was immortal. In the end, he wanted to get back at the top-ranking person for killing him without any explanation, but since the old man had a similar ability, it would turn into a complete fight. That's why he came back to a time before the old man awakened his abilities. Hearing this, the ghost questioned, wait a minute, you went back in time just to take revenge on a single person? You committed suicide for 11 years straight. After a moment of silence in respect for Proto's 11 years, the ghost asked for Proto's name. He introduced himself, and then the ghost asked why he had decided to mess with the old man and why he stole his ability right after getting his revenge. Proto answered in the most natural way possible. Yeah, because he was number 1, and the fastest way to get strong is by taking the skills of the strongest. Looking at the protagonist, the ghost began to understand. The reason Proto was being so honest was that the ghost couldn't pass this information on to anyone else, and Proto agreed with that. Getting up, the ghost began to look Proto over meticulously, commenting that his body was good but needed exercise and that he was also ambitious. Proto couldn't understand what the ghost was trying to get him to do. In the middle of the night, they ended up at the slime field. Proto asked if he should just kill them, and since that was the case, it was pretty easy. The moment Proto cut a slime in half, it suddenly grew huge and swallowed him. However, Proto remained calm and quickly freed himself. Seeing the scene, the ghost declared, yeah, I'm here. Proto asked what he was talking about, and the ghost began telling his story. When he was alive, he was known as the Emperor of the Sword. He was born in a different world, and a tower appeared where he quickly climbed to the top. This was probably true, as his ability card explained all this. He continued, saying that when he reached his level, he could gauge the talent of others with just one look. Proto replied, so you wasted your time because I don't have any fighting talent. To which the ghost responded, it seems you do. You have talent, a very big one, to tell the truth. Proto asked if he was joking, but the ghost continued, of course, you don't have talent for martial arts. Your movements are clumsy, your body isn't trained, and you're nowhere near feeling aura. But you have a talent that no one else has. You're not afraid of death. After all, most people instinctively protect themselves when fighting, but with you, it's the opposite. This is probably because you've died more than 4,000 times. Hearing this, Proda asked if that could really be considered a talent, and the ghost confirmed, yes, because talent isn't something you're born with. Anyone can gain talent during their life, and one of the hardest talents to acquire is overcoming the fear of death. That's why you're amazing. Seeing all this, Proda began to think, no one ever told me anything like that. My God, I couldn't stand it. I never even said it to myself. I just couldn't stand being treated like an insect by the Emperor of Flames. I couldn't stand it to the point where I killed myself 4,090 times. And in the end, death became my talent. Then the ghost asked, tell me something. When you died to the old man, what were you thinking at that moment? After Proda answered, the ghost started laughing like crazy, saying it was very interesting. As Proda had mentioned before, now there was a clone of him because he copied the old man's ability. For that reason, the ghost wanted to see which of the two would become the best hunter. He decided he would help Proda to the point where even he could take on the old man. No, even better, until he surpassed him. That way, they could fight and destroy that damn tower together. A few hours later, the protagonist's alarm clock was ringing, and like me when I'm awake, he asked for another 5 minutes. But the ghost kept shouting, saying the old man must be finishing the 10th floor right now while Proda was asking for more sleep. If he didn't wake up, the ghost threatened to sing a song he learned while alive, a song that could decapitate 30 people with just the first verse. Fed up, Proda asked the ghost if he knew what time it was. Without waiting for an answer, he showed that it was 4 in the morning. Seeing that, the ghost responded, even insects start to stir at this time. Since you're weaker than an insect, you should wake up even earlier. Hearing this, Proda retorted, spare me. Just because you can't sleep doesn't mean you can ruin my sleep. I always wondered why the holy sword trained every day at this time. And by the way, it wasn't by his own will. It was because you wouldn't let him sleep. The ghost just told him to go back to sleep. But since he was already awake, the ghost declared his goal complete. Because of him, Proda could wake up early and train, so he should thank him by kneeling in front of him. But Proda declared that he just wanted to kill him. Obviously, that wasn't possible since the ghost was already dead. But that suited Proda because he couldn't die either. From that moment on, the ghost decided to call our protagonist Zombie. After a while, as he ran down the street while the sun was starting to rise, the ghost began to say to our protagonist, hey Zombie, let me remind you, besides your perseverance, you have no other talent. So, I prefer to start teaching you the basics, but you are still inferior to that. And somehow, your level is below the basics, the ghost remarked. But in terms of potential, you're like a limitless black hole. That's why he said Proda needed personal assistance, which would require paying for high-level classes. In other words, they needed to win the lottery. Speaking of the lottery, there's a guild called Sangrium, officially known as the Union of Merchants. The master of this guild is a rank 3 hunter named Condessa. She's the only person with the ability to make exchanges with the outside world. Thanks to this ability, the Blood Guild 1 has a monopoly on the town's economy, making it the only place in all of Babylon where it's possible to bet on the lottery. Proda placed a piece of paper on the table and declared that he was there to collect his lottery winnings. The clerk congratulated him, while the ghost whispered nearby, hey, I've always been curious. Why do these guys always wear cat ears? Proda responded, I don't know. I heard the guild master is a cat woman. At that moment, the clerk asked if Proda had checked the date because it wasn't possible to collect a prize from a ticket purchased 2 years ago. But Proda had already done this, as it was the first thing he did after gaining the guardian spirit, who was the ghost. As the ghost had suggested earlier, he needed some initial capital, so winning the lottery at least once was essential. When the clerk went to check the tickets, he was shocked to find that Proda had won first place. Naturally, this information started to cause a stir, and the clerk said he was going to get the manager. The ghost asked if Proda would be okay, considering he might get robbed. Proda replied that before returning to this time, Yasuoha had already used this ability to win the lottery a few times. From that, he learned a few things, and it's not something you can hide even if you try. If the information gets out, the best course of action is to be upfront about it. And if a winner is attacked, the Sangrium Guild would suffer the worst consequences. At that moment, the manager, Arthur Tyler, arrived. He was also known as the Guardian of the Chest. The protagonist introduced himself, commenting that Arthur's nickname was amusing. But in his thoughts, he knew that if someone had a nickname like that, it meant they were at least a rank 300 hunter. Arthur responded that he often hears that from people and asked Proda to follow him. Proda reflected that, normally, an F rank like him could never associate with someone of such a high rank. But today was different. Why? Because he was now a client worth 50,000 gold. Even the ghost teased him, saying he was easily impressed because he'd never received this kind of treatment before. before. The ghost even felt a bit bad for him, but Proto thought to himself, for God's sake, can't you shut up? Damn, what is this with everyone killing each other? Calm down, calm down. The guy has never been praised before, you know? It's tough, man. Let the guy be happy when he can. Wow, he died 4,090 times. No one knew that. Only this ghost throwing stones. It's not possible, right? The ghost declared that Proto shouldn't be so easily influenced, insisting that he should believe that everyone in the world exists to be trampled by him. However, Proto ignored this and reflected, are all people with Emperor in their name psychopaths? I'll never want to be like them. Peace. At that moment, Arthur asked if there was any problem. Proto replied that there wasn't, he just lost focus for a moment. Arthur commented that he was relieved because he was internally wondering if someone had treated Proto badly before he arrived. Hearing such kind words, Proto thought to himself, my lord, is he an angel? They arrived at the VIP room where the prize awaited 53,000 in gold. If he converted all that gold into money, it would be worth about $5 million. With that much money, he could live comfortably for the rest of his life. If his goal had been to be successful, then he had already achieved it. However, he decided to stay on task. Becoming rich was just a small step. After all, there was a shine in gold much prettier than this one. Proto then declared to Arthur that he would leave the money in his safe. Arthur replied that it was a wise choice, as that's what he recommended to all winners. As they approached the money, Proto continued, saying he wanted to buy an honorary membership title from the Silmarillion Guild. Since the cost was about 10,000 in gold to become a second-class honorary member, he would pay in advance. Arthur asked if Proto wasn't already in a guild, and Proto confirmed that he wasn't. The ghost commented, yeah, you're smarter than I thought. A guild isn't just a group of friends or hunters. The main reason people join guilds is for protection. Sure, there are the Hunters Guards and the Association, but the city is too wild to rely on those two organizations. This was evident from the way the Emperor of Flames and the Holy Sword killed him. The Emperor of Flames never joined a guild and was always proud of his freedom. He won the lottery twice, but probably didn't pay any protection fees to anyone. Of course, someone of his level refusing to join a guild really annoyed others, which is why he was almost poisoned. Proto knew he didn't want to make his situation worse with the other great guilds, so he wouldn't be foolish like the Emperor of Flames. Oh, and of course he wanted a few more things like a cheap room for one person and a cool place to stay. And obviously, if the newspaper asked who won the prize, he could say it was an anonymous honorary member of the Silver Guild. After hearing all that Proto had said, Arthur remained silent for a moment and then remarked that Proto had come well prepared. Proto replied that the world was a very dangerous place, so it's always best to be prepared. Arthur agreed, and then the ghost approached the protagonist, joking that he was becoming very lonely and might need to change his diapers. Proto just told him to shut up, but the ghost continued, noticing that Proto seemed very happy. Proto responded, of course, this is just the beginning. For 1,000 deaths, for 1,000 days returned in time, and a power that couldn't be fully enjoyed because of my focus on revenge. Now it's time to take advantage of it, he added. The ghost then began to explain that, as he had said before, the tutorials are the most important part of his lessons. And now that Proto had enough money to pay for them, it was time to start. So what did Proto think the next step should be? Proto replied, find a competent teacher? The ghost scoffed and said, what do you mean? There's already one right here in front of you. It's the books and parchments to teach you martial arts or potions to improve your physical abilities. But at your current level, you won't be able to learn anything just by reading parchments. So the only thing you can get are potions, and they have to be of high quality. Proto asked how good the potions needed to be, and the ghost explained that when he was with the old man, they went to a place called the Alchemy Castle, where several healers worked. The potions should be made by at least someone from there. Proto then asked, aren't those things too expensive? The ghost didn't answer directly, but recounted how he was extremely shocked when he learned about the ghost's life. Proto, making a quick calculation in his head, realized that if he used all his fortune, he could only buy 4 jars. But the ghost just told him to shut up, saying that if he was good at negotiating, he might even buy 5. After running for a while, Proto was extremely tired and asked the ghost to wait. Surprisingly, the ghost really did wait, but out of nowhere, Proto ended up bumping into him, which didn't make much sense since he was a ghost. When Proto asked why he had stopped, he noticed the reason: a red shoe, one they both recognized. He remembered that Velos had also visited the same store as them. After all, the two of them were together. In fact, it was his clone who was there more or less at the same time. Seeing all this, Proto began to question in his mind, but why didn't you tell me this before? You should have told me right from the beginning. Didn't I tell you that if the old man sees me, I'm dead instantly? In the end, the old man just turned around without noticing anything. The ghost then declared that this was terrible because if the old man man was there, it meant he was probably buying all the potions. Boy, the old man must be filthy rich, the ghost commented. With all the fortune Proto won in the lottery, he could only buy 4 potions? And the old man is going to buy everything? That means he's loaded. There's no other explanation. Indeed, the old man had gone to buy the potions, and the ghost began to complain because the old man had gone right now, and that store was the best in the area. Calmly, Proto started thinking, it would be too risky to use the same store as the Holy Sword, but looking at the hunter rankings, he's not in the top 20, nor in the top 100 or even 300. They're not here. No, it's actually the opposite. Proto then said, hey ghost, I don't think I need to spend as much money as you said. I know a place where we can get these potions really cheap. After all, I know a great alchemist. Sometime later, they found themselves in a very strange place, which was actually a slum. The people there were already giving them suspicious looks. The ghost started to question whether there really was a decent alchemist in such an area. Proto replied, she's not just decent, she's a genius, the kind that only appears once in a generation. The ghost told him to stop talking nonsense, asking why a genius would live in a place like that. But Proto just told him to be quiet and follow him. The people in the slum weren't too fond of Proto because they were trying to figure out if it was worth robbing him. But they ended up deciding against it when they saw Proto talking to himself, automatically assuming he was crazy. As they walked a bit further, they started hearing a lot of shouting. They noticed a green-haired woman pleading with some men not to take her equipment because, without it, she wouldn't be able to survive. Apparently, the man didn't care how much money she had. It wasn't enough to pay him, so they were going to take everything. She begged for 5 more days, but the man said he was tired of her excuses. Last time, this week became a month, and a month became a week, he said. She even tried to hold onto the cart to prevent them from taking her things, but it was no use. The man even sarcastically suggested that she should find another line of work. Everyone in the slum started calling her useless because her prices were too high and the slum was a miserable place. But the woman retorted that her prices weren't high at all. She barely made a profit from them, insisting that it was almost impossible to find potions of the same quality and price anywhere else in Babylon. In the end, she said they should be grateful she was selling potions to them. But of course, everyone just thought she was a crazy woman shouting. With that, they all left. The ghost, seeing the situation, asked Proto, you're not going to tell me that loser over there is the genius of the generation you were talking about, are you? Proto answered, yeah, it's her. Approaching her, Proto got her attention and asked if her store was still open. Why did he approach her instead of waiting for the Holy Sword to leave the store to buy her potions? First of all, this woman is neither a crazy alchemist nor a loser. In reality, she is the master alchemist, destined to reach level 5 in the future and become the leader of the castle. She quickly stood up and said that her store was indeed open, then asked what price range he was looking at for his purchase. Proto declared that he had a budget of 20,000 gold, which left her completely shocked. While she was trying to process just how much money that was, Proto began to reflect. Okay, I've gone back in time and I'm not as weak as before, but what if I could forge connections with high rankers before they reach the top? This is the best strategy to grow. And of course, she will be my golden goose. For that reason, I'm going to become her #1 client.